Today's guest is Carlos Hidalgo. After more than 30 years in executive leadership, Carlos now helps entrepreneurs and business leaders avoid burnout, redefine success, and build lives they don't have to recover from. I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation, Carlos. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Isabel. It's a great opportunity to be here, and I feel privileged. So thank you.
So for 31 years, the voice that helped you survive in business was probably the one saying, push harder, prove yourself, don't slow down. I'm curious, what's something that voice still whispers to you today, and how do you answer it differently now?
Yeah, great question. And I want to make sure timeline wise. So I followed that voice for over 20 years. And then about 10 years ago, I hit burnout, bottomed out, and just felt like I had nothing left to give. So for the last 10 years, I've been preaching against burnout. And then I'm sure we'll get into some other stuff that just happened about 6 months ago. But that voice does not stop telling me, go for more, go bigger, be on this stage, do this. And what I've learned, though, is that that's not always a voice that is healthy. That is a voice sometimes that can be a distraction. It is a voice that does not align with what I want out of life. So I've learned to very quickly recognize that in most cases and be able to say, okay, more isn't always wrong. Bigger isn't always wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. It's just not better for me and for what I want with my wife and our life and what we've designed and how we've crafted our life, especially being empty nesters now. It's just different. And so when that voice is like bigger, more, harder, I just go, yeah, that's not how I want to design my life and what I want my life to look like.
Wow. That's a really powerful reframe. Like I can't imagine the courage and sort of introspection that it took to come to that, relationship with your inner voice, with that inner voice,
Yeah, it took a long time to get there. I actually have named that voice. So we have conversations quite often when he starts to whisper things that aren't good for me. But it took a long time to get there. But I love being there and really love just doing what I get to do.
I love that. And I think that, reframing it can be such a powerful thing. And like we spend so much time inside our heads. It might as well, we might as well make it a positive place to be in, I feel like the conversations we have with ourselves are so important, and they're just gonna completely, our life is gonna reflect back to us that, that inner dialogue. It's going to be a reflection of that inner dialogue that we have with ourselves. So I think it's very powerful that you chose, you identified it, that this wasn't a voice that you wanted to, have power over you, and turned it into something so positive and so transformative. But moving to my next question, you often say burnout is an identity problem disguised as a productivity problem. So if someone like secretly recorded that internal dialogue of a burned out executive, like what sentence do you think they'd hear on repeat?
I think in many respects, it's, why are you struggling? Why aren't you giving more? The reason I think it's an identity problem is I find, and I got caught up in this too, we tend to align our identity with what we do or our career or our profession and the accolades. So, and I write about this in the book that I wrote now 7 years ago, is whenever you meet someone new in a professional setting or a dinner party or whatever that looks like, it's amazing to me at how quickly the question of, so what do you do comes up, because we kind of want to know how we stack rank. And I've yet to meet someone who's gone through burnout that doesn't tie it to my productivity determines my worth. And that's not at all what determines someone's worth. And that's why I believe that, and there's actually science that talks about this, the belief that we are the scarce resource. So I'm the one that makes my company go round, or my department goes round, or we've probably heard, well, I've got to work on vacation because they don't know what to do without me. That's just not fundamentally, that's not true. They will survive without us. And so that's why I believe it's an identity problem. Is we're striving for worth when we already have worth because we are created in the image of God, the one true creator. That's where our worth lies, not in anything that I'm going to do professionally.
Yeah, it all comes from, inside the worth. You're trying to look outside to validate, that. But no, it's all inside. I love that perspective.
Oh, thank you.
You help you help leaders define success on their own terms.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, what's one question you wish more people asked themselves before they got everything they thought they wanted?
I think they should start to really ask, what are the things that I value the most? And I'm not talking about anything wealth or money or, for me, I came to a place of I value my freedom. I value the ability to be independent. I value time with my wife and my kids. And I value my health and my faith. So now that I know those things, not to say money is not important, because it is, but I then construct my life to say, what is it that allows me to give the best of myself to the things that I value most? And I do value my work. I value the clients that I have. I value the engagements where I get to go speak, but I've been able to put them in the proper context. So instead of what do I want is very different than what do I value. Because if I really understand the maybe 4 to 6 things that I place a high value on, I will then start to look at everything through that lens. And usually there's a foundational element out of all of those values that everything else builds on. And so I wish more people would ask themselves that instead of what do I want? Because we all want more. We all want the best, the brightest, but it doesn't necessarily put a value on it for us.
Absolutely. I'm mentally writing this down, and I hope that it doesn't erase forever. Like, what a great conversation to have at 10 in the morning to start my day. Like, truly, this is something that I'm going to take, and I'm just going to ask myself after this conversation, like, what do I value? And it's not like, I think that distinction that you said, what do you want and what do you value, is so important. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
You recently shared about being live flighted just over 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I can't even begin to imagine what it must have felt like, to hear a paramedic tell you, if you're going to die, you'll die, whether you're awake or asleep. Yeah. And you wrote that strangely what followed wasn't panic, but a sense of freedom in realizing how little control we have sometimes. And that's something that stayed with me when I read it yesterday. And for someone who spent decades leading organizations and helping others navigate uncertainty, how did that experience reshape your relationship with ambition and the feeling that you have to always hold everything together?
Yeah, it definitely was a good reminder that very little is in my control. I can control how I respond to events in life. So that was a good reminder. And then in terms of ambition, I'm still very ambitious, but I don't place as high a priority on meeting goals. It's more of an urgency around what is important, what is most important. And again, for me, that's my relationship with Jesus Christ is first and foremost. That's my operating system. And then it's my marriage and how is my relationship with my wife. And then it's my kids. So they're all scattered all over the place, but thankfully we have technology that can keep us closer. Yeah. And then it's my friendships, my really, really close friendships. And then I would say somewhere is my work of what do I do? But I think having that structure and understanding what's the top priority, and it doesn't mean I don't work hard. It doesn't mean I don't value it. It just means I've been able to, again, reassess what are those things in my life, what's important. And when that stroke happened 6.5 months ago. It was wild. It was unexpected. But I did have a peace that surpasses all understanding because of my faith. And I knew where I was going if I was going to die. But I did pray for more time with my wife and my kids and hopefully someday grandchildren.
Oh, well, I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. Thank you for being so honest about that. I read it yesterday and it really stayed with me truly. Like I woke up today and like, oh, I'm going to have this conversation today. And what you're saying about reassessing, your priorities, it's just so, I think it has so much power really in the way
Yes.
you sort of, not structure your priorities, but how you map them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's great how you have gained so much like inner power and strength from this situation, and that it really touches every aspect of your life.
It does. And I want to be very clear. This is not just because I'm stubborn or somehow super courageous or anything like that. My faith in Christ is the thing that allowed us to go through this with a peace and a calm and an assurance that while I didn't love this and it's not anything I would have signed up for, we know that this was intended in our life. This was allowed for a lot of different reasons. And I see how it has shaped me and just served to make me better, a better version of who God created me to be. And so that's why I can give thanks for it.
I love that perspective, Carlos. That's
Thank
so
you.
beautiful, truly. And my next question is: many high achievers say they want balance, but deep down they still admire exhaustion in a way. What's a behavior we celebrate in ambitious people that you now see as a warning sign instead of like a badge of honor?
I think we celebrate, the religion of work. The percentages show, and I forget the exact percentages here, but well over 50% of people will work when they're on vacation. That's not a vacation. You're just working from a different spot. This idea that we applaud of working on the weekends and making sure, and again, there will be times when that has to happen. I did a little work this weekend, but my wife and I had a conversation before that happened. It wasn't just something that I did. It's not a habit that I have, but we laud these people who, give everything they can to move up another rung. And I think we have to start to ask the question of why? Why are we applauding that? And then we do wonder why over 70% of people have experienced burnout or say, I'm in the midst of it right now, because we're applauding on one side and then we're going, oh, we've got this epidemic on the other. But let's solve the root cause problem and understand that I'm no more or less worthy as an individual because I work more or I made the company another $10 million. That's what I do. It's not who I am. And as my wife says, our job titles are the least interesting thing about us. Yet we applaud this ascension. We applaud growth. Every email I get, cold email, is, hey, we helped X and X client grow. And my response is always, that's great for them. I don't want to build a big company. I've already done that. I already built a company. I don't want to do it again. And that should be okay as well. But when we voice that out loud, or we voice, I don't want to be promoted, I don't want this, we look at that person as if they have no intrinsic value or no motivation. I just sit there and applaud it and say, they figured out what they want and they're designing their life around that. We should applaud that instead of the other, because a lot of people killing themselves, that's not what they value. And I could even say it's not really what they want.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, that's such a different way of looking at it. And I think a lot of leaders need to hear that. If you could identify the exact moment burnout begins, like what would most people be surprised to learn about it?
That's a great question. And nobody's ever asked me that before. I don't know that there's a moment in time where it just begins. I think it's a slow drift where you then do hit a
Mhm.
wall and you just say, wow, where you have it kind of, from what I understand, in a lot of ways will mimic people who battle chronic depression or something like that, where the
Yep.
motivation isn't there. You literally feel physically you're dragging yourself out of bed. Uh, there's very little joy in the work that you're doing anymore. But I don't think we just get there overnight, like, oh, all of a sudden this happens. But I've seen it. I experienced it in myself where even if you're in the office, you're not doing a whole lot. You're just kind of there. And you kind of become, the
Yeah.
way I describe it is you become a shell of yourself. And I know I went through that as well. And there was a lot of reasons behind that. But I really think that's what people need to be aware of. And this idea that we're wearing exhaustion as a badge of honor is ludicrous. We weren't made to be these always on engines. There is a limit in which we can do because we as human beings have our own limits and we'd be wise to pay attention to those.
You just said that like we wear exhaustion as a badge of honor is so true on so many levels. Truly,
Yeah.
like the system that we exist in, like really celebrates exhaustion, and it
Yeah.
like if you're exhausted, it equals like wow, you're super successful and you're thriving, and like it's completely wrong.
Yes. And we also wear busyness. I mean, you talk to people, especially in our Western world.
Yeah,
Oh, how are they? Oh, my word, I'm so busy. And my
so
question is
busy.
like, why are you that busy? Are you really just packing that much into your life? I'll tell you, one of the greatest things I enjoy is sitting outside here. I live in a beautiful area, and in the summer and the fall, just sitting out here with my wife without our phones and having a conversation and a cup of coffee. I've got nowhere to be. I've got nobody to get a hold of me. And I just want to make sure that I'm there and I'm present. And
Yeah.
I will get to work because I've built those boundaries around my work that allow me to bring the best of myself. But when I'm done, I'm done. And I wish more people would establish those boundaries in their life.
Wow. Yeah. Absolutely. Boundaries are so important.
Yeah,
Truly,
absolutely.
they're essential.
Yes.
And it's like,
And it far outweighs balance, which is, most people say they can't achieve balance. Well, of course we can't. So define those boundaries, which gets back to what are the things you value versus what do you want?
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it definitely ties. I feel like boundaries are sometimes so hard, though, to implement. We are scared that people are going to judge us or what they're going to think or that we're like a failure. But I feel like having boundaries, healthy boundaries, is just so essential to like not burning out, to be in peace, to be present, to have a balanced life. So thank you for
Mm-hmm.
mentioning boundaries. Boundaries are so important. We love boundaries here.
Right. Good. I
You
like that.
you often say leaders need to define success on their own terms.
Mm-hmm.
So what's a question you wish someone had forced you to answer before your career ever took off?
Um, I wish they would ask me what is a healthy, how do you define success from a healthy perspective?
Yeah.
Because again, in our Western world, we have defined success by more, by the number of zeros in your bank account. We've designed it by what is your title, what is your role, all of these little materialistic things that point to this person's successful. Some of the most successful people I know are probably some of the poorest people that I know or have gone through stretches. And I wish somebody would, instead of asking the question, given me a picture of what true success looked like. And I define
Yeah.
it as, can I lay my head down on the pillow at night, content with what I brought to the table? Did I love the Lord my God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength? Did I love my wife in a way that makes her feel secure in our marriage? Was I a good friend? Was I a good father? Did I do right by my clients? If I can say yes to all of those things and then know internally that I'm still pretty centered, that's a successful day. If I string enough of those days together, it becomes a successful week. Weeks turn into months, months turn into years. Doesn't mean I stop growing, but I wish somebody had given me that view of success versus success. You'll achieve success when this, and this happens. So you buy the new house, you get the new car, you have the 2.4 kids and the white picket fence and all of these things that we tie up in the American dream. Success can look different, and it should look different for all of us because we're all unique individuals. So the person who is doing what we might think is nuts, that's fine if it works for them and it makes them, it helps them achieve what they value. Who am I to tell you that that's not success?
Yeah. Well, this is such a refreshing take. I love this. Like, I truly am like, wow, now I'm going to go to sleep every night and say, was I a good daughter? Was I a good human? Was I a good dog mom?
Right.
I mean, and sort of that brings me peace. Truly. Thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to hear that.
If you could sit across from the version of yourself at the height of your success, like the one who believed stress was simply the price of achievement, what truth would he resist hearing from you the most?
Would he resist hearing? He would resist hearing you should slow down because there's a wall that you're going to hit. And I would say, no, I that's not true. So, and I know that because I did have people tell me that during that time, and I did reject their advice. So that is, you asked for, there's a lot of others that I could give you, but you asked for one. So I'll keep it at one.
Okay. And to close, you help leaders define success on their own terms. So if everyone listening woke up tomorrow unable to use their title, revenue numbers, or accomplishments to introduce themselves, like, who would you hope they discover they are?
I hope they get back to who God created them to be. Because at our core, we are all unique individuals. We all have different gifts. We all have different talents. And only I can use my talent in my unique way because I'm the only Carlos Hidalgo as far as me, right? I'm a unique individual. You're a unique individual with different gifts, different talents. So you're going to be able to use them in your unique way. And so for me, that's where when people say to me, who are you? Even when they ask, what do you do? Typically, I just like to say, I get to help people for a living. That's what I do. And if they want more, that's fine. But I've started to ask people, so tell me your story, or what is it like to be you? And I learned that from another friend that question, what's it like to be you? Because that really gets to the core of who we are, not what we do. And who we are and what we do are separated. Yes, what we do does have some sort of reflection on us as an individual, but it's more of how we do it. And so I think if we could get around, am I doing whatever it is, am I doing it with the most authentic version of myself back to who God created me to be? That starts to shift our focus and change a little bit on how we view the world and how we define success in our own lives.
Wow. You have such a powerful, beautiful, magical, special perspective. And I thank you so much for sharing it with me and the audience. I think conversations like this deserve a lot more space than they often get. So thank you for your courage, your wisdom, and the honesty with which you've shared your story. Like success, identity, burnout, faith, purpose. These aren't easy things to talk about, but they're deeply human. And I'm so grateful for your perspective. And I know this conversation is going to resonate with a lot of people. So truly, thank you for sharing and for being here with me today, Carlos.
Absolutely, Isabel. It was a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. And I hope all of what you said does come true and that it helps at least one person who's listening, that it helps them get further along in their life. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to Penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.